All right. I've referred several times now to this plan, these 10 points that I would do if elected. And I want to run through them briefly now before I go into each one with more detail. And first, let me say that these are 10 things that I believe in that are important that are for the success of the country. But more importantly, I think these are 10 things that the vast majority of people across the board believe in and would want done by their government and that have not been addressed by the government. And I think that's an important part of getting this done is settling and agreeing on a group of actions that we want done and then putting it to the government to say this is what we want action on with an overwhelming majority of support. So I'm going to run through the 10 things here briefly and then go into each of them in more detail in separate videos. So let's get into it. First of all, national debt. The national debt is unsustainably high, bordering on the point of disaster. And I think this is something as each year they go through and raise the federal budget more and more, they're trying to sweep it under the carpet and say this is not an issue, everything will be fine. But we're seeing that's not the case. You're already seeing the cracks in the facade. You're seeing it through the constant inflation, the price of housing, the interest rates. And I think, as I mentioned before, ultimately this is going to fall on your shoulders if it's not addressed. So I want to present a plan on how to bring that down to zero. That's number one. Number two is national defense, the budget there. You can't have a serious discussion about how to address the debt and how to get a reasonable budget without addressing the largest item there, which is the national debt. The spending now is $1 trillion. The recent proposal is to take that to $1.5 trillion. That'll just blow out the debt even further. So that needs to be brought down to a reasonable level. That's not just spending on the military. That's also spending on the defense industry, to spending on conflicts outside of the U.S., direct payments to foreign governments, support for foreign conflicts, all the international payments. That all needs to be reined in. And brought down to a reasonable number. So I'll talk about that in two. Number three is healthcare. Healthcare is unaffordable for the average American now. It's unreasonably high. So I want to present a plan on how we would bring those numbers down. Number four is an easy one: health and safety. Traditionally, the U.S. has lagged in food safety and water safety. Some reasonable progress has been made on that recently, but I want to continue on that. I want to look at what the highest standards are across the world and then start to match those standards in the US. Number five, AI and data privacy. Over the past decade or so, at least, we've seen the federal government working hand in glove with these tech companies, sharing data back and forth, exploiting everybody's private data. I think we can all agree that this is not something we want. This is not something we voted for, unless you're a shareholder of these companies. The U.S. does not have a data privacy law on the federal level. And I think that's done purposefully because right now companies can do whatever they want. There was also an executive order floated recently saying that the states can't regulate either. So the federal government doesn't want to act, but they don't want the states to act either, which is just creating the Wild West for these tech companies. They can do whatever they want. I don't think that's what we want. We need to put in some reasonable regulations on what these companies do, and also a plan on how to manage AI, because right now it's just being used against us, and there's not a plan on how to protect us in that way. So I'll talk about that in five. In number six, I want to address growth of the economy, because I've talked about, or I will talk about, a lot of things that reduce spending and reduce the debt. But anytime you talk about doing that, there's a chance that you'll just hamper the economy and reduce growth. And then it becomes cyclical, because if you reduce growth, you reduce tax revenues, which would increase the debt burden and that kind of thing. So at the same time you go to reduce debt, you need to put growth initiatives into the economy, that not just growth initiatives for corporations, but growth initiatives that will benefit the average American. So I want to talk about some ideas on how to increase growth, um, such as investing in education. Number seven, you've heard me talk a lot about the outsized influence of corporations in the country. In seven, I want to talk about how to restrict corporate lobbying and foreign lobbying, because both are going on. We have corporations lobbying, we have foreign governments lobbying and foreign interest lobbying, as well as just rich donors lobbying. I want to talk about how to reduce the outsized influence of these groups and these corporations on the federal government and what we can do about that. And I want to talk about where we have these very large corporations with an outsized influence on people's lives and the economy, what to do about that. That takes us to number eight, affordability in general. We know that's gotten worse each year, and each administration it gets worse. So I want to present some plans on how to improve affordability for the average American, and how we can bring costs down, instead of just having constant inflation. Number nine is individual liberties. As long as I can remember, our individual rights and liberties have been chipped away at a little bit at a time by both parties, or I'll say the party that's in control of the government. I want to talk about some specific issues I have on that front, and what within the scope of the presidency can be done to restore some of those rights that are important to all of us. Number 10 and final, to wrap up, I'll call this an ethics initiative, or maybe you could call it an anti-corruption initiative. But we've seen this pervasive, again, from administration to administration to administration. We see this pervasive, unethical, corrupt behavior by both parties. We've seen that with trading on non-public information by Congress, and in the executive branch, we've seen talk about, and you can pull specific examples of this from both of the last administrations, where siblings or relatives are working on the board of a company that the government has influence over. You have no bid contracts that some of the cabinet have given to their family, that or have connections back to their family. All this kind of thing that's just blatant corruption needs to stop. And I want to present a plan on how we would strengthen anti-corruption in the U.S. And get back to the rule of law. So these are going to be my 10 things, and I'm going to have a deep dive video on each one of these that you can watch for more information. One of the things that I want to call your attention to look for is a specific plan. So I don't want to just throw out an idea or a slogan like politicians always do. I'm a plan person. So when I talk about each one of these, look for a specific plan of these are the actions I would take and how I would make it happen, and the time frame that I would make it happen in. That's what I want to draw your attention to, is how specifically I'll address these things. If the majority of people watch these issues and say, A, these are things that are important to me, and B, I know that no party candidate is ever going to touch these issues because it's not what their donors want, then we can agree what we need here is an independent president. And if you want an independent president, you agree that would be good for the country, then we need to get 34% of the voting public in each state to coalesce around these topics. So as you watch these topics, if they resonate with you, share the videos out, go to the website and watch more about them. Sign up, spread the word, and we'll go from there. Thanks, everybody.